Hello, East Coast. Good morning, West Coast. Todos bienvenidos. Welcome to AVX Live. Today marks our first episode, and we look forward to a great discussion. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audiovisual Services, and I'm going to be joined by my co-host, Ryan Finch, our Creative Technology Director. Hello, Mr. Ryan.
Hello, Mr. Gilderson. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm kind of excited. This is fun stuff. We never get to do fun stuff.
I know. And we are live, and that's kind of exciting, right?
Well, what's better than live? Well, that's another episode, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's another episode. But either way, listen, the purpose behind this program is really twofold, right? We're looking to help our community. We're always looking to be part of the community. But we want to help them learn best practices and learn new ways to use both audiovisual and technology to improve their day-to-day business and personal lives, which is where the name AVX, or Audiovisual Experiences, came from. Our second purpose is really to practice what we preach. Every day we're discussing with our clients how to keep the focus on the message, how to keep it interesting, and how to keep it on the timeline. Let's keep it concise. So what better way to show execution and what can be done than do our own live content? But listen, Mr. Finch, I would like you to kind of just walk us through the thought process and maybe give us some ground rules so we know what we're doing today.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I have any rules for you because
there's no rules. Is that what you're telling me?
There's no rules. Only what the content guideline policies are for Facebook and YouTube, where we are live right now. And that's actually my first point, which is while we are live, we know, having been in the business for quite some time now, that really our views don't end with just the live viewership. So we know that there's probably a fair amount of you who are going to watch this after the fact, and that's okay. Obviously, for some of you who are able to comment, we certainly encourage that. We may be able to pull some of that into the show. We'll see if that works the way we want it to. I think it will, but that remains to be seen until we try it. But otherwise, from the perspective of what we set out to do on a daily basis, really those three words that are in this post, I don't know if anyone saw the description there, but experience, success, and results. Obviously, those three words are kind of what makes up our focus when we go into any event, whether it's virtual, hybrid, or in person. And so that's really making sure that everyone involved has a good experience, that the event itself is successful, which is usually a little more obvious than not, but also that the results are there so that there's a measurable impact to really drive home that success. So that's really our focus. And again, that's kind of the bird's eye view of what we're setting out to do here, putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak. And of course, we certainly hope to see more of you engaged as we go on. So please, oh, geez. So, Joe actually slightly different demographic. I won't date him, but Joe has just recently learned of these YouTube creators and smash that subscribe button.
See that? We got them all covered.
Yeah. I mean that's definitely what we're looking for. So please share, comment, like, subscribe, all the above. And with that, Joe, why don't you introduce our guest, please?
I'm going to introduce him. You prep him backstage because this is a special individual. So for our first guest of AVX Live, I'd like to welcome Mr. Mike Dardano, Marketing Executive of BuzzPotential. BuzzPotential is a marketing and public relations service that focuses on helping small businesses develop a roadmap for their communications, which are really designed to help them grow their revenues and, of course, increase their profits. We could use a few extra profits right now. So let's keep talking to Mike today and learn something. Mike has been an active community member in Armonk, Peekskill, Eastchester, and his hometown of Tuckahoe. He's a leading small business advocate. He strongly supports all small businesses, and he's a tremendous supporter of our nonprofit community. He spends a lot of times with groups like Support Connection, Homes for Veterans, and the Child Care Council of Westchester. All great groups. So please learn more about them all. Mike brings an incredible energy and creativity to everything that he does, and in a slightly unusual way. But I'd like to say that Mike is everybody's crazy friend. And fortunately, I have a few others, so I know what crazy looks like.
Kind of the expert.
Yeah. But look, I know Mike's been a friend of mine for over 15 years at this point. He's helped corporate AV with all of our marketing and PR and social media. And he's also a fellow Bostonian. And of course, he is Wireless Mike in our band, Wireless Mike and the Analogs. There really is no cable that can keep this guy under wraps. So please welcome Mike Dardano.
It's hysterical. Oh, damn. That's funny, guys. That's pretty cool. I had to get a screenshot of that, by the way.
So, well, of course you did.
Yeah. That was awesome. So,
well, you know, Mike, I got to tell you, my very first question is, I see you in hundreds of social media photos. I mean, you're everywhere. And in every one of them, you're wearing sunglasses and some article of clothing of one of your clients. So what do we got today, number one?
All right. Yeah.
And,
so,
and where
right.
did this come from? Like, when did you start doing that?
Well, it kind of feeds into some of the stuff you're going to talk about. But so I've got corporate AV shirt.
Yeah.
The Jim from New Jersey, which is a client. I've got Thompson Excavating, which is a client. These is not a client, but I'll take free stuff because I'm cheap. This is from Orange Theory in Tuckahoe. And this is when I first met Joe, my other band called Buzz Joy Love, which was made by our friend Peter Benfield back in 2005. So
would
nice
you say
cozy.
would you say that's your favorite piece of swag? Do you have a favorite piece of swag, Mike?
I like
There's
this
no
one.
wrong answer, but if it's not corporate AV, I'll be up.
I like this
so
one.
Got it. And what did that say? I'm sorry.
It's got to do with Colorado.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
The John Denver song. Yeah, that's it.
So that took. We're at 8:59, Joe. That's how long it took.
That's how long it took. I mean, we knew it was coming.
That's all right. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
So, Mike, would you say that this would be a real way for people to, improve their lives by saving dollars on clothing? I mean,
what's interesting is that everybody has to have a brand, and everyone has to have an image, a public image, to quote the great scholar Johnny Lydon from Pill. And my public image, I decided a few years ago, because of what was going on with the social media and with these lovely devices now that have better cameras than some of the expensive cameras I had years ago, was to create an image. And the sunglasses thing really took off. And now I get people when we had events up until last year that actually wanted to have sunglasses and take pictures with me. So I was bringing sanitized sunglasses in March and February of last year to events, and people would put the sunglasses on. And even now when I meet people, I still try to do it. And it's my little brand thing. And I put it on LinkedIn, I put it everywhere, and people seem to like it. And especially when I'm wearing other stuff with it, like your shirt, or people like that. It's a way to kind of stick out from the usual. A lot of people that are in my business, I love them dearly, but they tend to be very self-promotional. I'm not like that. I'm promotional for the people that I respect and care about, whether it be a charity or a client or a friend. That's more important to me. So that's kind of why I do it.
Oh, that's interesting. It's funny because I've seen you wear sunglasses. Obviously, I've seen you wear them quite a bit. I didn't realize how intentional it was. Now I certainly see. I mean, there's nothing that's more, I guess, obvious than wearing something on your literal face in terms of driving that kind of personal brand. And in terms of personal brand, is that something? I know you're kind of a big proponent of that. In the virtual setting, are there any things that come up or that you've seen that you liked in terms of personal branding in a virtual setting?
Sure. A couple good examples, I think, and I think you guys have seen this, are the business councils events, the networking events that they've been doing, because I know you guys have been the back end on that for a few of them. Some people do really cool stuff, like Larry Gottlieb did a really cool thing. Larry's now with Robert Martin Company. And he had a cool background, and it was supposed to be like a party thing. And he was all partied up. He was all had his island background and everything. And that was pretty cool, because Larry, even though he's a brilliant guy, he also has a very dry sense of humor. So it kind of fit him. So if you know Larry, that's apropos. Robert Chiaffi, our friend Robert Chiaffi, who does from Progressive Computing, who does your IT, he's been being very creative on these virtual meetings, having different backgrounds. He likes superheroes. Sometimes he has that. The last one, he had the fire thing because he's on fire. So I think people that do it authentically, it benefits them. People that do fake stuff or have a sloppy mess behind them. I mean, actually, there's a sloppy mess kind of sometimes behind me, but that is covered up right now. But that's okay for certain meetings. But if you're out in the public, you don't want to have that. So you want to make it authentic to who you are as a person and as your brand, if you can.
I would imagine that being authentic is something that we're going to hear a lot of, because that seems to be a real key point in any public communication, is being authentic. And I know we have that discussion on the video side with our clients a lot, just because of watching their material. And we just say, be who you are, like that it makes everything easier. Right. So, today's a little faster and looser, so we can be a little bit of who we are today too.
Sure.
But listen, I'm going to ask you some real questions. Otherwise, we'll get off track, and then we won't make our timeline.
Yeah, right.
But listen, I know you spent put that thing, get that out of there. I know you spent decades in sales, marketing, and of course, public relations. I imagine that the last year has really been a big change for you, just like it has been for everyone else. How have audiovisual and technology impacted your day-to-day experiences?
When you're I'm very event focused because I do a lot of social media and PR. And so when all these things started shutting down, it was a little bit frightening for me as well, because I did a lot of on-site photos, on-site live video. I worked in conjunction a lot for the Business Council with John Vecchiola, our friend, great photographer.
Johnny V.
He would take real pictures. I would do the social media stuff. And so when this all came down, I was like, wow, what am I going to do now? And I didn't really know about Zoom. I mean, I knew it was there, but that was it. Then you guys started with the Zoom thing. And so obviously, as being involved with you, I kind of monitored and watched what you guys were doing. And then the Business Council got involved. So I was like, all right, so now Zoom is a tool that I can use. And so one of the things that I did was I started taking screenshots of Zoom calls. And the thing about that, which every business person should do, is by taking screenshots, provided you have people looking decent. If they look like crap, you can't really use it. But if you carefully do it, you can even ask people to pose and smile. Then you can take that screenshot and share it on your social media and tag the heck out of it. You can tag the companies on Facebook, you can tag the people on LinkedIn, and it'll draw attention to your business page or your personal page if that's what you're doing. And it's a great way to show, hey, we're out there. Oh, look at this. We're doing stuff. People like being tagged, especially if it's a complimentary picture. So it's no big deal to say, hi, everyone. You just want to stop for a second. Let me just get a couple of screenshots and post it. And so that was a huge deal. So from that, I ended up getting more social media accounts because they saw me doing those things and continuing to pump out content, even though we weren't having events anymore. So that in itself, Zoom or Zoom technology, for lack of a better term, because there's a million things that do it, was a godsend to me because I always worked from home, so that wasn't the issue. So I was able to kind of turn on a dime for that. So that was great.
Well, so and that's kind of interesting, Mike. Personally, my experience has been that while we're more connected than ever, in a sense, because now everybody's kind of gotten more reps under their belts of using this kind of technology, people getting familiar with new things that they haven't necessarily used before, just like you said. But I actually feel like now more than ever that we're a little bit more isolated in a sense as well. You're not bumping into people at the grocery store as much because everyone's face is covered up, but that's for different reasons. We're not out networking. We're not seeing each other at in-person events. You're losing a lot of that periphery. So in a sense, I think your role as a connector is really more important now than it really ever was. Have you found that to be true? Do you find that there's more value you have to offer in this setting than there was in person?
That's an excellent point. You mentioned initially we talked about wearing the swag, and when you wear someone's swag, you're reminding people that they exist. You're showing them that you care about them, and it's a huge deal when you don't have that. You can't even really shake hands right now when you do end up running into someone. So yeah, tagging them. Talking about the kind of thing, celebrating what other people are doing, especially donations and charity stuff. For example, things that what was it? The thing that Enormous Creative did, that the tons of soup thing. I forget the name of it. 1 million pounds of soup, or 1 million gallons of soup. That was up in the Peekskill area, and that was a great thing. And they did that right up front. And they were making soup for people that needed food, and that was a wonderful thing. And they got the restaurants together. Louis Lanza was involved with that, and that was great stuff. And to celebrate that, you can only really do that on social, because our friends in the media, in the traditional media, are getting killed because of the advertising downturn. So how are you going to get the messaging out? These platforms, social platforms, this Zoom and things like that, getting these things out to people now is critical because of that detachment that you have. And at least when you're on video with someone, it feels better than just a phone call. Phone calls are okay. Text is, but a in-person, hi, I can see you. Oh, you know what's going on. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal.
Well, I know that I've actually found that in some ways we've had improved on our relationships with our clients, just because we're spending more time with them on the virtual work, where we have 2 months working leading up into an event, and especially on the video production and the graphic design side, where in the past we might not have spent that time. We might have just seen them, had our conversations leading up on logistics to the actual production, but then we just met them one time at the event. I mean, literally, we might never have met them until the event day, whereas now we're having 20 different conversations ahead of time. I know about their children. I know about their dog. What's the dog's name? I'm just saying. but I mean, it seems like the connection can be better depending on how you use the tools and the technology.
It's funny because when you guys look, and by the way, I got to put sunglasses on because Kevin Brown is complaining from Hudson Barter Exchange. I don't have my sunglasses on, so let me put those back on. All right.
Yeah.
That's for Kevin. That. Kevin's from New Hampshire. So we got to stick together. New Hampshire. Anyways, if you think about what your business was structured before, your business was structured to setting up, that take a lot of work to set that event up, the physicality of bringing all the equipment in, going through all that. Now you have a different set of things that can probably take or more time, but it's not physically demanding. So you can do this other outreach, and the post-event marketing, especially for fundraisers, but even for businesses too, when they're doing a speech or whatever, is critical because social media allows you to promote it. It's democratized video, right, for smaller and medium-sized companies. Mm-hmm. And I think people forget that. They do the build-up, they do the event, and they're like, okay, it's done. No, it's not done. It's there. It's archived. You can share all over the place if it's relevant and good. If it sucks, then delete it. But if it's relevant and good, let it live forever. And people don't realize that. And especially nonprofits, I see a lot of times they just cut it off. Okay, we had our event, fundraiser, great. We raised $1 zillion, and now 2 days later we shut it down. No, don't shut it down. It can go on for a long time after. And especially since you don't have physical people there, then you need to, the internet allows you to stretch out that fundraising. So it's, even though there's such horrible stuff that has happened during this pandemic, very horrible stuff, people that we've lost and all the other things that have happened, the jobs, there is a silver lining in that this technology is going to enable people, especially when we come out of this, to compete on a different level. It's never going to be 100% the same, but it's going to give you the tools to compete that you in a way that you couldn't do before, because you just really probably never thought of it because it wasn't an option. It wasn't available to you. Even though it was there, you didn't know about it.
So do you think because of the time that we've been in this pandemic during the last year, has social media marketing changed?
Oh, it has. It has. Here's another issue too in relation to that question. I was at a meeting today of one of my clients, and they're a nonprofit and there's a board. And one of the members of the board said, well, what about Snapchat and TikTok? And I said, what about Vine? And they go, what's Vine? I go, that's right. I said, look, TikTok and Snapchat have some relevance depending on if you're marketing to kids. But if you don't do Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter well, then you're not going to do TikTok well, because you're just going to bounce around. And I see all these people do these things. They point to they're like, do this, they point. And then here's the thing, they point. That's great. But how long will that last? And how relevant is that to a certain kind of consumer? So you got to do the basics. So Vince Lombardi said, "Gentlemen, this is a football." Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the social media, and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, at least for the foreseeable future, aren't going anywhere. I don't know what's going to happen with TikTok. I don't know what's going to happen with Snapchat. I don't know what the next thing is going to happen with. I mean, look at Parler. Parler got shut down. So you don't know. There's a lot of things that big tech is in control of, but we know those 4 things aren't going anywhere. So that's where the focus needs to be. And because people are using it more, because they're home, because they're in quarantine, because they're shut in many cases, they're on this all the time. You know, used to be able to, I'm going to do a post on, Monday at 8. Who cares? You can post whenever you want if you do the right tags and do the sharing. I post at 3 a.m. and get all kinds of activity because I'm tagging and sharing.
And everyone's saying, "Why are you up right now?"
Yeah, right. Like
there's no competition at that time, to be honest.
Yeah, there's no competition. And
it's like the 5 after 5.
He must have visited Bolivia. No, I didn't visit Bolivia. I just have a lot of work to do, and it's important to get stuff out. But if you don't do it the right way, then it doesn't matter. If you post it, and a lot of people do really good with posts, they post great stuff, but they're not doing anything with it. They're not using the right hashtags on Instagram. They're not tagging, which is different. Tagging and hashtagging are 2 separate things. And sharing in groups on LinkedIn and Facebook, then unless you have a gigantic audience already, then you're not going to get the exposure you need because they want you to buy ads. The social media channels want you to buy ads, so you got to work around that. So this video thing makes it more engaging because now you can use video, which is we all know is more engaging than static posts, and you have far more video content because if you're doing things like this or a live event and it's on video, you can use that as a way to increase engagement or hopefully get people to your website. You can use it for training, human resources, onboarding, all that stuff. You can onboard remote employees now and not have to spend the money bringing them into wherever headquarters is because you have this technology. So it's way more applicable to other things than just marketing.
So, Mike, you touched on something interesting. I just want to make a couple of quick points and see if you have any thoughts on them. We talked about TikTok and Instagram, obviously on the social side, but TikTok in particular for a reason. And now I know Instagram has some features that are kind of ripping them off, for lack of a better term. I mean, it's the same thing. But what I find specifically on the creative side, since that's much more my focus in all of this, what I find is that with the ease of use, that there's sort of a shift towards, people DIYing it, right? And that the level of professionalism that can take and that can have is actually much higher now than it ever was before. So that's one, which is I think people can actually do themselves more polished creative work than ever before. And two, which I guess is kind of going in a separate direction, but number 2 is to your point earlier, it's like if you're not there constantly, then you're nowhere. If you're not, it's not like you make one really good post and then you're like mailing it in, I'm done for the week, baby. It doesn't work that way. But I'm curious to know, in your position, do you find yourself getting requests, that are just kind of higher level requests because the perception is that it's easy to do?
See, here's the thing. If you're not creative in real life, TikTok isn't going to make you more creative. Okay, if you're not a creative person, just because, and I got to tell you though, the TikTok and this technologies and this apps that you see on your phone that you can do full video editing, all kinds of effects that you couldn't do. I mean, I've done video on my computer since '99, and back then it was like 20 hours to render a 1-minute video. But now there's all kinds of cool stuff. But that doesn't mean just because you have the tools, just because you have a great car, doesn't mean you're going to be a good driver. And that's the problem. So do it yourself is good if you're good. That's great. But if you're not, then all these fancy bells and whistles, you're going to look like an ass. And you don't want that. So there's a place for do-it-yourselfers, no question, because that's good. But then there's a place for the professionals, especially when it's more sophisticated and there's more to lose on the line. And that's where the balance is. For you guys, it would be beneficial for some of your clients to be able to do certain things, do it yourself, because especially if you're doing video, if they're competent and can do a decent video on the phone and the sound is okay because you have microphones and stuff you can have on your phone, that's great. That helps. That lowers the cost and it helps you guys. But you can't depend it on do-it-yourselfers if it's a certain level of image that you're trying to portray. That's not going to work. So that's a balance. And our friends in photography have learned that, oh, I can take it with a phone. Yeah, but your pictures suck. You don't know what you're doing. Taking a picture. It's easy to
Tell
go
me
on
what you really think.
Well, take a picture of bikini or whatever. That's great. But how do you take a picture of somebody in low lighting and make them look okay? Okay, and make them look okay when you know that person has issues with how they look. You can't just randomly take a picture. You ask them, what's your favorite side? If you do it wrong, I don't care what you're using. So all those little intricacies, that's where you need professionals for. And that's where guys like you fit in, your companies fit in, because there's a balance. If you try to do everything yourself, it's going to look that way. It's just going to look that way. And if that's what you're trying to get at, that's fine. But most of the time, that's not the case.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have this discussion a lot as we're going through and planning some of the different events, especially if we're working with nonprofits. There are areas that we want them to work on themselves so that we're not involved and their costs keep down. It's just a matter of finding the right niche for each group of where they can work, right? Because not everybody has the same skill level or the inclination to even work on certain things. But your points are very valid and kind of lead into the next step. But Mike, did you notice how I had a millennial on this conversation just to make sure that us old guys were like,
I'm sorry, is
really
that me?
in the game?
Is that me?
Are you the millennial? Yeah, you're the millennial.
Yeah. When Ryan was born, I was
we're not going to get into that. We're not
going to get into that.
Wait. Let's see what he says.
No, not even that, because Brian's still. No, Ryan's very young. I mean, no, I was. I don't know what I was doing when you were.
You might have been an adult by then.
I might have been an adult, but there was still something juvenile going on. But yeah, wow.
Well, that does kind of lead me into another point. As we're getting along in our times here. We always look at technology being like a great equalizer, especially in terms of as people get older, because it's always evolving. So there's always a new thing to learn. There's always something new and exciting. However, this period of time has really been very challenging for a lot of people. I know I hear from a lot of our clients that they're rock stars in what they do. But the fact that they have to handle a lot of this technology on their own and at home without any support has definitely been challenging. So what suggestions or thoughts do you have for people who are trying to figure this all out? I mean, can they just wait for things to get back to normal, or what do you think?
Yeah, Pandora's box has been open, and hopefully Ryan knows what Pandora's box is, right?
I do, believe it or not.
Okay, you studied that in school.
He took some history classes.
It's like
Greek mythology or
Pandora doesn't go back in the box. I think that's
no, right, exactly. No,
that's the key right there.
No, it's out and it's happening. That's the thing. In fairness to people, if you think about what we had 10 years ago, and it's funny watching shows where they still had flip phones, because about 10 years ago was when the first iPhone came out. Right? Or 10, 9, maybe it was 9, something like that. But you look at things from the early 2000s, they got flip phones. And I remember you have mail, all that old dial-up stuff, and computers that were wheezing that I had a computer. I didn't know this, but I had the Valium chip on my computer because everything was slow.
Wow.
The Valium chip. I didn't know that.
You see where he went
Mac
there?
OS X Valium.
Right. I didn't know that Gateway was involved with drug companies.
It was long before Leopard.
Yes, before Leopard and Tiger.
Sleepy
an animal. Yeah. But it does move fast. But I think if you have to have a certain viewpoint of the world. But if you kind of look at, I always try to refer this back to what happened in the 70s when the deindustrialization of our country started. And there were signs all over the place. Steel mills closing, textile mills closing. So it's sort of foreshadowing to, like when you read novels, what's the foreshadowing? Well, the foreshadowing. So this stuff is happening. This globalization is happening. It's rightfully long. It doesn't matter. It was happening. So how are you going to adapt? And if you don't adapt, then you become an amoeba and you're stuck with the tide, whatever the tide tells you to do. So that's sort of the thing that I think this pandemic has really helped people focus on. You either adapt or you die. Now, in some cases like restaurants, that's a whole nother issue. That's just completely whatever. But for other businesses where things have slowed down, you either adapt or die. Are you running efficiently? Are you doing the right thing? Do you have a mission? Do you know who your customers are? All that. So this whole process that's occurred with the technology, especially in the last few years, is going to get even faster. 5G is coming. So, I mean, who knows? Pretty soon we're going to have virtual reality that you can get on your phone without putting those stupid goggles on. Right? I mean, so
we know that you wear those just for fun around the house. So.
Yeah, I don't need to. I have flashbacks, so it's cool. It's not a big deal. But my point is that this is not going to change. So what I think is very encouraging, and I think you guys have probably seen it with some of your clients, is if you look at, for example, members of like the Business Council and some of the other community members in Westchester, there's a lot of people that are older like me that have their act together on this, and that's critical. It can't just be the Gen Z and Gen whatever under that, and then millennials. It has to be all of us adopting it, because we have to all work together in order to achieve what we need to achieve, which is getting the economy back on track and supporting our communities. So I think this is not going to change. It's only going to get faster, and we can adapt. We can adapt because there's people like you that can help them. We have people like Robert Chaffee in Progressive Computing that can help people with technology. You can't do this alone if you want to do it in a sophisticated way. So there are plenty of partners. Don't be afraid. You know, guys tend to be like, well, I don't need help. Well, you do, dude. You need help. You need help.
And you need a millennial to help you do it.
You need a millennial
for the win.
Exactly. A millennial for the win. And when they get dumb, get a Gen Z or whatever the next generation is after that.
There you go.
But that's what you need. You need partners. You can't do this alone. And smart people and people that know how to adapt understand that. And that's where all the technology stuff, fine. If you got a guide, if you got a tour guide to help you, besides going on YouTube, YouTube's great. There's a lot of videos. You can do a lot of stuff by looking on YouTube. But still, there's some things that can't be explained or that can't be done by yourself. So guys like you, your company, technology companies too. I know you do something with Mac Tech. You need to have. It's not just just other things that you guys don't do, but you need as part of this thing that has to happen. You got to have good cameras. You got to have if you're doing videos, you got to have good people who know how to do videos. So it's a whole team working together, and it's going to be more necessary. But the cost is going to either stay flat or go down, because these technologies are becoming more efficient and it's taking less time, and time is always money. So I think we're going to continue to see this grow.
I think you're pretty on point with that. I know that we talk about it all the time. We don't feel like this is going to go away. I think we're adapting, and now it's just been such a creative time period for us all to grow and learn that I agree with you. Pandora's not going back in the box. I'm sorry. Hey, Ryan, do you think we have time for one more? I'm just trying to keep an eye on the clock here.
Well, we're 2 minutes past the half-hour mark, so Joe, up to you.
So, well, I mean, Mike, if I asked you one more question, you think you could, contain
summarize
it?
Yeah, or I'll do it quick, like I just was on the movie Scarface. I'll talk fast.
Oh, okay, listen, you're both. I don't even know where that came from, but look, your work, our work, is always about results, right? How do you think people should be measuring results right now in this environment, this time period?
I mean, tracking, looking at your data. Years ago, when I first started in the newspaper industry, my mentor was Bill Ford. Cigarette, whiskey, and he said, "Know your numbers. Know your numbers. Know your numbers." And today, because of social media and because of the digitization of everything, it's hard to say digitization of everything, you have all that data. And if you don't look at that data, then you're never going to know what's up. So whether it be your Google Analytics, whether it be all your back-end data, the one thing I have to say about Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter to a degree, Instagram, it's not as good because it's only for 30-day periods, but some stuff goes back far, is the data. And you can see what's working, what people are engaging with. You can see if they clicked your website. You can make sure that your website's, that landing page or whatever has got some meat to it. It's got some call to action so you can measure. And you can use software like Salesforce or other things to track what's happening with your business dev people. As a business dev person now, and you have a LinkedIn page, you should be on that page every day to see who's following you. I talk to companies; they didn't even know that you can see who's signed up as a follower or a like on your LinkedIn page. I'm like, if they like your page or follow your page, they're semi-interested. And now you can actually reach out to people like a few years ago. If, oh, you clicked and followed me. That's weird. You're tracking me. You're contacting me about that. That's not the case anymore. So you have to know your numbers and set measurement goals and hold yourself accountable. So yeah, we're posting a lot. That's awesome. What's happening? I don't know. Well, what do you mean you don't know? If you're going to do this and not set up a measuring, whatever your measurement is, ultimately it's got to be about dollars. So it's your job as the marketing person or the biz dev person or the owner of the company to make sure that these efforts pay off. If they don't, that's not the social media's fault or the video's fault. That's your fault. So you have to be held accountable. And I know in today's society, sometimes everyone's like, not my fault. But in a way it is, because these tools are all there. All the back end data you guys get from these videos and stuff, especially something like this where people sign in and who, that's great stuff. So you have to have measurable goals. You got to use the data that you have, know your numbers, and then come up with a way to track it so that you can see if you increase sales, which is ultimately what everybody wants. And profitable sales, not just, loss leader sales, profitable stuff.
Well, I think you're right on point. The amount of data that's out there right now is incredible. It's one of the things we talk about on the virtual event side all the time. We have so much more data on a virtual event than we do in an in-person event. It's not even close. It's not even close. I can tell you who's watching from what country. I can tell you if they watched on an Android, on an iOS device. We know when they came on, how long they watched. We know where the peak moments were. We know where it dropped off. We know that once we hit, 57 minutes, we hit a little bit of a drop off. We know within 2 minutes of the start that everybody's going to be there, 95% at least. It's just amazing information that you could never track actually in person. And I think it carries right over to social media and everything else you're talking about.
Exactly.
But Mike, you have been entertaining and knowledgeable and creative, just as I knew you would be. So, we appreciate your time, man. We thank you very much.
This was great. Appreciate it.
And everything that, you're doing in the community, keep it up. Stay away from the Rocky Mountain High, but, but otherwise keep helping everybody, because that's what our community and that's what our small businesses need.
Shop local, support local.
Thank you, Mike D.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Mr. Finch, that was a lot of info he gave us.
That was quite a lot. It was quite a lot, but good info. And again, to my point earlier, obviously this is live, but the recording lives on forever, and I think that's kind of one of the takeaways. Speaking of takeaways, Joe, do you have some summary bullet points here?
I do. I have. Of course, we started with saving money on clothing. Maybe that's not for everybody, but I think having virtual backgrounds. We were talking about keeping it interesting. Then we went on to using screenshots for social media and a few pieces. Mike was talking about the communities and showing people how you care about them, how you're still connected, celebrating. And that's really on that social media side, but you have access to people that you probably didn't have time to do before, to be quite honest. Mike brought up a few other things about how this technology and from a marketing perspective is really helping people compete at a whole new level, right? Small companies can compete with big companies if they're doing the right things. Yeah, another key thing he mentioned was staying with some of the basics, which I know I found that to be very challenging in the beginning when we were getting going on social media. Like, what do we do with these things? The old snap face Bill Belichick comment, Insta chat, snap face. But, I think it's just a matter of trying to follow the information. We've talked about do-it-yourselfers a little bit because all the different softwares are out there. And then Mike brought us back and said, hey, don't forget that the high-end, high-risk items really need a professional, especially when you're talking about your key items or your key initiatives or your growth and profit drivers. Like, is that the thing you want to cheapen out on, I guess, is really the question. And it's not my place to say yay or nay. But if we keep going to some of Mike's tips, you got to adapt to the tech. I know a lot of people are kind of hoping that this was going to go away. I don't think it's going to go away. But use your tools, right? Use your partners, the other people to help you succeed and learn. And, then once we got down to how we're going to measure things, I mean, like Mike's old boss said, know your numbers. Like, you got to know your numbers and measure the data, track it. It really is. There's an enormous amount of information, which as a sales and numbers guy, I think is phenomenal. But either way, Ryan, we're over time, so I'm going to let you wrap us up. Bring us home.
Yeah, and we will, after this, we're going to post and I'm actually, Joe, the millennial is going to teach you another thing right now, a TLDR.
Man, I love it.
TLDR. You're going to look up that acronym later on, but the TLDR version in graphic form will be posted later on, just to summarize some of these takeaways. Please check us out. We'll be on Wednesdays. There you go. Thank you. There. Great. We'll be on most Wednesdays until things get incredibly busy, and then who knows, because, of course, we have some wonderful and incredible clients that we're looking forward to serving. So that's all from us, and we will see you next time.
Thank you all.